Welcome to this week's Mindful Monday. And as you can see, I'm in a different location to normal. We've decided to, for the time being, move the family out of London so we have more space for the kids, and also so I've got enough space to be able to work and to continue to hopefully support you guys in the best way that I can. So obviously the lighting and the setup is not as neat as normal. It will hopefully improve as the week evolves. But for this week's Mindful Monday, I wanted to talk a little bit about how people might be feeling at this point. And I know that, firstly, people are probably feeling a lot of things at once and probably feel a little bit confused and overwhelmed, probably a lot overwhelmed, about what it is that you actually feel. I think, and it's hard to sort of read the mood of where people are in different locations. I feel like I have quite a strong felt sense of sort of London, and we're just outside of London and in sort of surrounding areas. Certainly here what it feels like is it's Monday morning, and I think last week a lot of people were in a sort of freeze response and a sort of just sort of trying to adapt and make sense of, and probably moved between sort of denial, anger, frustration, fear. And I think what's starting to happen, at least in the kind of circles that I'm connected to, is that there's the beginning of a feeling of the sort of dawning of the reality of what the coming period of time is going to look like. And it may be that you're still kind of in that freeze response. It might well be, and I think this is probably where a lot of people are, you sort of temporarily start to just adapt a little bit and then sort of go back in again. And there's this sort of sense of being unable to perhaps find a consistent thread in terms of how it is that you actually feel. Working with people therapeutically, one of the things that is a kind of key foundation, let's say, of that work is whatever we're feeling is okay. As soon as we start rejecting our feelings, making them wrong, telling ourselves that we should be feeling something different to how we feel, all we do when we do that is we just cause things to lock up even more. And the fastest way to kind of process and move through and digest our emotions is to honor and to allow our emotions. So whatever you're feeling right now, whether you're not feeling anything at all, whether you're feeling an enormous amount, whether you're feeling angry or frustrated or fed up, or whether you're feeling a sense of fear or sadness or kind of hopelessness or powerlessness, whatever you're feeling is okay. And the way that we are with our own feelings, that the more that we can allow, the more that we can make space for our feelings, that is its own act of self-care and self-love. If you saw the first episode of In Therapy last week, my new documentary series working, kind of following people's therapeutic journeys, that was very deliberately where we started with the first episode that we released, that it begins with self-love. And more now than ever, your kindness, your care, your gentleness of yourself is critical and important. I think it's also important to say that human beings have a staggering ability to adapt. Those of you that are watching this that are currently managing a chronic illness, such as ME, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, those of you on a healing path, if even a year, 5 years or 10 years prior to that experience have been told what you would be going through and that you would learn to live with and at least for a time being adapt to, you would have said that was impossible. I could never do that. And yet you do. Same is true of people that end up being put in prison for whatever reason. Maybe they're innocent, put in prison. And the stories of people's ability to adapt to that environment. And right now, there's a lot of focus on, understandably, a lot of focus on what we're losing. We're losing our ability to be free to do what we want to do when we want to do it, to socialize, to be with people. And there's a lot of adaptation and sort of digesting of and making sense of that. And there is a lot that people are temporarily losing. And yet we adapt and we find ways to find pleasure and find joy and find connection in different ways. And that comes from this kind of the process of owning how we feel, but also kind of looking at what's the best next step that I can take. What's the thing that I can do for the next hour, for the next day, for the next couple of days, which is going to make this experience easier. I also think that this is a great this situation is a great example of something that I've talked about on these videos and many times over the years, of the importance of the balance of what I call the C word and the S word. That's not what some of you are thinking. Commitment and surrender. Commitment to to make the best we can of the situation we're in, particularly if you're in any position of leadership, either that in a work environment or you're a parent and you're finding yourself homeschooling children and trying to provide structure and support there. We need to have a certain level of discipline and commitment. We also need to have surrender. And this is what I sort of started off talking about, of surrendering to our feelings, allowing our feelings, giving permission to our feelings to be there. And so in this sort of, in this balance, it's sort of deciding in any particular moment, like right now, what's needed. And it might be right now what's needed is you need to put some structure in place. You need to, get a plan in place for the kind of the day and for routine if you're homeschooling children, or if you're having to adapt to the fact that you're not able to go out and do things in the way you normally would. A sort of commitment and focus to put things in structure in place. But the surrender to go, none of us want this. None of us chose this. This is people, of course, feel all kinds of feelings. And where you're able to feel those feelings doesn't mean vomiting those feelings at other people. I'm not giving a sort of blank kind of permission to whatever you feel, just throw it out into the world. But with yourself, honor, acknowledge, be okay with how it is that you're feeling, because it will move and we will adapt, and how we feel will change and will evolve. And as much as it's a kind of cliched recommendation, also taking one day at a time. Things that feel impossible today, you will have normalized to in maybe even a few days, and certainly a few weeks or a month or two down the line. So it's having a certain trust in our ability as human beings to adapt and to find a way forwards. And sometimes something just feels utterly impossible. Like, I can't do this. I don't have what it takes. This will never be okay. And yet we then find the way through. So be gentle with yourself, but remember, commitment, have some structure, have some routine. You will adapt. We will adapt. And things will also evolve and change. And just like on the micro personal level, things that seem impossible today will seem probable and absolutely doable in time. The same is true on a macro level. Right now, the kind of society is adapting to the worst case scenarios of what this current situation means for us. But that doesn't mean that there won't be evolutions, that there may well be breakthroughs in certainly in terms of testing and speed of testing for coronavirus, of breakthroughs in potential treatments. There are already many, many, many drugs out there which may be helpful in certain cocktails, and there's already some early signs of and none of those have been done on large scale yet, but early signs of possible tools in the arsenal that we already have, that already exist. Breakthroughs in the speed that the vaccinations come. So it's like there's something that I think is healthy about adapting and planning for the worst case scenario, but that doesn't mean that the worst case scenario is necessarily exactly what's going to happen. It may well be that things start to progress, and it may well things have to get worse for a while, but that doesn't mean that it's a continuous terrible slope into misery and awfulness for society. That we will adapt on a personal level, and we will adapt on a societal level, and things will evolve, things will change, and without wanting to sound cliched, there will be many positives that come out of this. And just on a very simple level, people, I think, already have an appreciation for the liberties and freedoms that they've experienced and that we've completely taken for granted that hasn't been there before. Just like people that come out of chronic fatigue, ME, fibromyalgia, and suddenly can go for a walk for the first time, can go out for a meal for the first time, can, go out and be with friends for the first time. The whole of society is going to start to have an experience like that. And that's a very precious thing in of itself. So tomorrow we have the third episode. I managed to record the intro and outro before we packed down the office last week. The third episode with Lauren of In Therapy. Please do, if you haven't already, checked out the first 2 episodes. The third episode is the end of Lauren's first session. And then on Wednesday, I haven't yet decided what I'm going to do for the vlog. Thursday we'll be introducing Sally to In Therapy. One of the things that I'm sort of thinking about, and I'm just trying to work out logistics and practicalities, I might start doing some of the Everyday Alex episodes live over the coming weeks to give you guys a chance to sort of be more connected as a community and to ask questions you've got, and to just make it a bit more, I think, as people's communities and societies are sort of getting pulled apart, online seems to be a place people seem to be connecting more. So if I can help support that might be great. Maybe let me know in the comments if that's something you would like to do, to have some live sessions where we can interact and you can sort of post questions and I respond to those. Then I'm very open to that. But thanks for watching. I hope that's been helpful. And if you think this is helpful to other people in your lives that have to have a chronic illness, please do share this video. I'd be very grateful. Thanks for watching.